having support, and that's something I think took a long time for me to get, but I'm happy I waited for the right person, allows us to build a system so that no one gets left behind.
Nice.
And those months of being slow, now we have a system where it's like, okay, from the time an offer is accepted, we have the whole steps listed out for the consumer to see, for the client to see what to expect. Have every contact that we work with, they have access to that. So if we need to still do like walkthroughs for quotes, they can do shop around for home inspectors. Every single thing that they need is on a calendar for them, and they can
Right.
go to it.
Welcome to America's Inner Circle, the podcast that dives deep into the stories, strategies, and secrets of the most successful real estate agents in the game. Whether you're an aspiring agent, a seasoned pro, or just love a good success story, you're in the right place. Each episode, we sit down with top agents who share their journey from the ground up, how they overcame challenges, seized opportunities, and made their mark in the competitive world of real estate. Ready to learn from the best? Let's unlock the keys to real estate success together. Here is your peek into the Inner Circle.
Hi, this is Mel Allen, your host of the Inner Circle podcast. And this is a podcast where we're going to dive deep into the stories of the most successful real estate agents in the country. If you want to learn how to establish yourself as a top agent, you're in the right spot. And today, honored to have Hans, is it Nagrath from the Boston, Mass area?
You got it.
All right. Well, Hans, welcome to the podcast. You've been in this for what, about now 8 years?
Yes, 8 years.
And how did that journey go? How did you get into real estate? What was it? Did you trip in, fall in? Did you seek it out?
I think it was almost like I feel like I tripped into it, but I dabbled my toes in when I started. So,
Yeah.
I went to school to study politics and government, interned in politics and different, government jobs throughout college, graduated, was working in the state house. So I was on the political side of things, and that was kind of the trajectory I thought I had wanted to go. I was always very fascinated in real estate and all different aspects of just rentals, in terms of like buying properties and holding them and reading books about that and renovations and whatnot. I'd seen my father, who came to this country, from India, and, he had a successful business, but when that
Right.
business kind of dried up, all the money he made, he invested in real estate and, condos, single families, and those investments actually were able to kind of pay dividends down the line. So in the back of my mind, it was always something that kind of interested me as a way to kind of create wealth and stability. But, after working in politics, I actually, when I was looking to rent a place in Somerville, right outside of Boston, I was, introduced to a friend's friend who was an agent there. And, he was talking to me about it and kind of planted the first seed. And then, like within a year later, I was like, okay, I think I really want to, try to do this part-time. And then I was doing it part-time. My first sale was November 2017. And then
Yep.
from there, I was like, okay, let me kind of pick up the pace. I was still working my full-time job. And then, 2018, about springtime, early summer, I decided to just leave the cushy benefits of the government job and go full throttle in real estate.
Wow. So that first deal, what kind of a deal was that back in 2017?
So I was in an open house in Everett. I had met a buyer who was looking to buy in Chelsea, looking for
Yeah.
condos. And, we had, established a connection and we started looking at different places all over. And then we ended up finding a place. It was a condo on Cottage Street in Chelsea. And it was listed for just over $200,000, which sounds crazy now because I don't think there's like anywhere in the Boston area that's
No.
new construction for 200,000, let alone not new construction. So it was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and that was the first deal. So I had, it was very very new, very green as anyone else is in their first time, leaning heavily on my broker to help with things. There was some issues with the construction that we had to navigate through, but I'll never forget that first deal. We had some hiccups along the way, but we ended up making it happen, and that's what kind of started everything off.
And so then, if just months later, you were kind of like fully into it. What was the difference? What was the change? What happened that really made you be like, this is going to work?
So I just started absorbing books and like learning from the broker that had hired me, and I was like, okay, I was like spending a lot of time while at work because working at the state house, I was kind of a district director, so I was working 7 days a week. So it wasn't just 9 to 5 in the office. It was going to events, constituent events, or dealing with kind of everything in the district as well as legislative side in the office. So anytime I had free time, I was either crushing audiobooks in the car, learning more online. So I was like really hungry to kind of take more experience on.
It probably benefits you that you were also kind of used to working, whenever you had to. I'm sure that helps in real estate.
Yeah, looking back, that probably was one of the best experiences I could have had, because I've never experienced like a Saturday, Sunday. Like, I don't know I never really got that feeling of, okay, the Friday's here, Saturday, Sunday, I could do whatever I want, because there was always something going on. And just that conditioning helps a lot with real estate, because as you know, like, there's no such thing as like the joy for the weekend. That's when you're working typically the most. But I mean, once I started kind of getting more experience and actually was able to do a couple more deals, working with more clients and building that up, I was building the confidence to be like, okay, this is something I want to kind of jump all in on. And I had a lot of, my father at the time was saying, don't do it, it'd be a mistake. My mom was kind of supporting me. So I was having all these conflicting ideas, but I knew in my heart of hearts it was the right move. And I when I jumped in, never looked back. And then 8 years ago, here we are.
When did it finally feel right? Was it kind of at that 6-month point, or was it, a little bit later that you're like, I can see myself doing this for years?
I would say it was the 1 year. It was the 1 year point. It was the 1 year point, because then I had finished 2018 and actually had a really good year. And I was like, okay, this feels really good, feels really comfortable with me. There's definitely a huge learning curve, but like, I really am enjoying it. And I was like, I don't think I could ever get sick of this, And I remember, I'll never forget, like, I was talking, like, after that first year, I was talking with some more veteran folks, and I'm like, even all of the hard stuff that goes along with it, with like, deals that might fall through to inspection and all the nuance with like, okay, there might be an issue with the counter documents or all that stuff. I'm like, oh, it's exciting to me. And they're like, just give it 5 years. You are not going to find those things exciting. And I always thought, I was like, really? And then, he was kind of right, but it was still, it was, I would say a year in, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like just from your bio, you've had a lot of different things. I mean, you've got first-time home buyers, you've got investors, things like that. Is there any particular thing that, project that you've been involved in that was really, really rewarding, and kind of what was it about that brought that reward to you? I mean, obviously, other than financially.
I would say in terms of a project, the one that was the most rewarding to me was the one in 2019. Just to pivot for a second, like, it was very rewarding for me working with either a seasoned investor or buyer who was already bought and sold before, and they're trading up and helping them kind of make that happen, but also a first-time home buyer who has a lot of nerves getting into the market, and there's a lot of nuance, and just help guiding them through. That's really rewarding for me to do. But the first project that was like, okay, wow, the window of opportunity and how far you could take it was 2019, when I met this buyer, amazing guy, who was like, I really want to get into development in Boston. I've never done it before. Mm-hmm. So, it's something, I don't have any contacts here. So I found an off-market project in Charlestown, and, it was a pretty crazy deal to get through. There were some issues, some litigation issues. The neighbor, it was an attached single family, and the neighbor was in her 90s. So the previous developer who tried to develop it got shut down by zoning, shut down by a butters meeting. It was it was on Elm Street, and I coined it. It was like a nightmare on Elm Street, essentially, the whole situation. But it had so much potential, and we ended up buying the project and going into architect, zoning, planning, and then I had introduced my architect, zoning attorney, builder, pretty much the full team for the project, and then just seeing that to fruition and all of the hurdles along the way was probably one of the most incredible, like, eye-opening projects that I've done.
Yeah, I've definitely heard people say that, cutting through some of the red tape in Boston can be pretty tricky with a lot of projects. And it sounds like you overcame all of those challenges somehow by luck or by, just effort.
A lot of effort, grit, and patience. And it's really interesting. People don't realize, like, every neighborhood in Boston has its own neighborhood association, right? And these neighborhood associations have a lot of control in terms of what developers can and can't do. And you have to really be mindful when you're going into these things and what you're trying to approve, because everyone's going to want something, and everyone wants you to change something. And then you realize you get some people who are like, if you give me a parking spot, if I can rent the driveway for the winter months, we'll approve the project. It's like, this isn't like quid pro quo here, but dealing with all of that and all the different personalities, it was very interesting. But yeah,
Yeah,
it turned
trading
out to
parking
be.
spots sounds like the most Boston conversation you can have.
Yeah, pretty much. People put their chairs in front of the a parking spot during a snowstorm if they shovel it out, and we honor that. But yeah,
Yeah.
parking is very limited factor here.
Yeah. Would you say that that's one of the biggest risks that you've taken with that project, or is there some other one that you also took a lot of risks with, or?
On the development side, yeah, that was definitely the biggest risk. On a project that I purchased for myself where I'm living in, that was
Hmm.
by far in 8 years, I would say in my life, the biggest risk I've ever taken. There was so much hinged upon making this project work that it was like as much risk as I could possibly take. I mean, I was buying a unit in a
Jeez.
4 unit brownstone in Back Bay where you have you have three other owners. It's in a historic landmark commission. And for me
Hmm.
to make this project work and worth it, I would want to change the egress door, which is a long form permit. So with construction, you have short form and long form. A short
Yeah.
form permit in Boston might take a week to get. Long form, you could be looking at several months. And I wanted to change the egress, add the bedroom and a bathroom. And all the bathrooms in the building are stacked in the rear. So I was trying to
Right.
add a bathroom stack in near the front, where we'd have to find a way to run the plumbing line down to the basement. And doing this in a 4 unit brownstone association has its challenges, because before you can even pull the permit, you need a signed letter from all
Yeah.
the owners agreeing to the work.
Everyone. Yeah.
And the building itself needed a lot of work. It needed exterior repointing. The whole foundation was in disrepair and in
Hmm.
jeopardy. And you had two absentee landlords, one overseas in China, one in the West Coast. So
Oh, wow.
it was so much. I couldn't. I look telling the story of it. It was pretty incredible. So almost everything that could have gone wrong, I think, did go wrong. But it took so much legwork, and we ended up getting everyone to agree to do the assessment work. I mean, the 6 figures, repointing, rebuilding the foundation. I got approval for running the plumbing line and hiding it on the back wall of the side wall of the common areas.
Hmm.
And we were able to get it all done. I mean, the historic shut my project down for a month, which was horrible because of a vent that was not the right color. But
Yep. Oh, boy.
everything got done. I got my dream place and a PhD and doing a construction in a 4 unit brownstone. And yeah, that was it was worth every bit of risk. But it definitely was it was a lot of long and stressful nights.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think again, the political environment may have helped you to, can kind of make some promises and campaign for the good of the house. But I mean, what you've got now obviously is probably worth a lot more to every one of those other people too.
Yes, and definitely, like, some have really appreciated it, and others are like not so much. But I mean, it is like the whole building. It went from looking like a absentee rented building that hadn't been touched in like decades to a fully owner occupied, like well run, efficient, beautiful building. And that is, I would say, probably I would say that one of the best accomplishments I've like feelings I've done before, and that really
Yeah.
kind of motivated me to pursue more of the construction licensure side and get a lot more experience with that, because I've even though it was so challenging, I found it like really fun. Like
Yeah.
I did. So I was like, if I'm like, I don't think a lot of people would find it fun, but I did, because there was so many steps involved, but like each
Hmm.
step that you check off is you're getting closer to
You're
seeing
getting
the
closer and
result.
closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. So, what kind of have you developed as kind of like your own unique, kind of like way of approaching the industry? What is it that sets you apart from others you think in your area that's made you, really successful there in Boston?
So I think for me, a big part of what I do is basing my own experience in help educating clients and
Hmm.
working with them. So whether that's someone who's trying to be their first time investor, telling them about my first multifamily deal, how I structured it, everything that I did, the people I've used, giving them all of that information, even on the financial side, on the logistics side, on the emotional side, what to expect to really help people feel very comfortable with what they're trying to do and what they can expect. And then
Hmm.
in terms of like just working with, let's say, someone who needs to sell to buy and it's a really stressful situation, they've been living there for multiple years, trying to take as much of the headache out of it. So I work with an awesome, stager and mover and interior designer, and she will come in, help pack up their whole entire house, take care of storing items for them, and just kind of take all of the work. It's almost like full service. It's like if I've done as far as you know helping clients completely move out of their place, renovate, stage, sell their house, help them move
Yeah.
into their new house, and do some renovations for them after the fact. So it's kind of like, for me, the big thing is offering a one-stop shopping service.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really kind of completing the whole thing if you're even helping them get that new spot that they're in, work for them continually. And that's great. That definitely sets you, I think, in in many ways apart from others. Now I'm a bit north of you, and this is often a slow time here that we're coming out of. How do you maintain consistency during some of those slower market periods, or do you have those kind of slower market periods?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely well-timed question because last year was the best year in terms of sales of my career. So I mean, I had eclipsed 55 million in volume, which has been a goal for me in a long time. But all of that business was done between January and end of September.
Hmm.
October, November, December, and January was the slowest I've ever been in my career. Like slower
Yeah.
than 2018 when I first started. And that was actually a really challenging time for me because even though at that point I had the construction side, the business, which I had just finished a project with, but very selective on the projects I'm doing there because if you work with the wrong client and the wrong project, it's even if the money is not worth all the time and energy that it takes from you. So I was kind of
Right.
pausing that. But at the same time, I also had just hired my director of operations, Jenna, who's been incredible. But we're very slow, and I'm not used to being slow. But we just kind of focused in on systems. How can we make things more efficient? How can we make the process better for the clients we're working on? What are some of the areas we can get more organized? And we spent months doing that, and then it's like, okay, we've spent like 3 months doing that. Let's get busy again. Like what else can we do? And I feel like, I it was hard for me to accept it, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna accept it in this way. So another thing I was doing was like running a lot. So I'm training for this race that I'm doing. Um, it's a ruck for wounded veterans and
Hmm.
mid and end of April, and so we're also
Nice.
raising money for that. So send a
Right.
donation link to anyone listening to that. So we're trying to raise $8,000. So that's a big race. So I was like, okay, now that I'm slow, let me just take the time to eat healthy and run and kind of take care of myself, and then we would get focused, stay organized on systems. But it is definitely a challenging one of those things that when you get in the business, you don't realize, like, okay, how to handle your personal life when you get super busy, and
Right.
how do you
Right.
handle your personal life and manage peak productivity when you're really, really slow. And that's a really hard thing to figure out because there's so many things that are easy for you to do that are not going to be really the best result for you.
Yeah, a lot of people have trouble not answering that email or not answering that phone call, and if it's real busy, and you're not running, you're not going to show up well in April, right? So it's
Exactly.
important to set that time aside. But on the flip side, when that phone's not ringing, right, and you can only go to your email account so many times and send out updates without a real update, and
Exactly. That
uh,
was, I mean, literally, that is like the whole entire. That was a theme of the last 4 months. Like, what updates? Like, do we have to send? There's not really much. But yeah.
Yeah, that definitely the one of the true things in the Northeast is that it's a little gray, it's a little slow for a couple of months, and then boom, you're right back into it. So, how do you make sure though that when those transitions happen, that everybody's having the best possible experience, you included and your clients?
It's a great question, Mel. I would say before I hired Jenna, I was able to do it at the
Hmm.
expense of, I think, like that time to like go for a run, sauna, like
Right.
stretch, like that, like just take care of myself, eat healthy. It was just I know that I want to keep up the same level for everyone. So at the expense of me just working nonstop. So having support, and that's something, yeah, I think took a long time for me to get, but I'm happy I waited for the right person, allows us to build a system so that no one gets left behind.
Nice.
And those months of being slow, now we have a system where it's like, okay, from the time an offer is accepted, we have the whole steps listed out for the consumer to see, for the client to see what to expect. Have every contact that we work with, they have access to that. So if we need to still do like walkthroughs for quotes, they can do, shop around for home inspectors. Every single thing that they need is on a calendar for them, and they can
Right.
go to it, and then we're able to tag team on it together. So that makes it a lot easier. For being solo, I definitely struggled with that because some people I think maybe would get more of me than others, and I
Hmm.
don't think I really found the best solution to do that as keep being completely by myself.
I think it's a good thing to learn about yourself too, right? That, I mean, teams exist for a reason, and usually it's because they make people more successful. So, yeah, if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are helping you be more successful, then why?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you that good on your own? And if not, maybe being solo isn't the best thing. But it's pretty amazing that on your own solo. I mean, you got on the 30 under 30 list, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that was last year. That was a goal of mine for a very long time, and I was very honored to get it. And it was, it was coming up. I'm almost, I had almost had, I think I had one more year left to try for it. But yeah, that was something I had. I think it was like 2019 when I first heard about it, and I was like, I want to pursue this, and I had tried a few times and it didn't get it, and then I waited like years to reapply again, and it was great to see that come to fruition.
And pushing hard and working hard for all of that, again, like when you're slow, a little easier to get in those runs and things like that. What were some of the ways that you did manage, kind of trying to squeeze in some of that personal life stuff when you were busy and you were on your own and you were really pushing hard?
When I was on my own, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't good. I would just like I'll be completely honest. Like it was working till like maybe 11 o'clock at night. I wasn't eating healthy. Maybe like have a glass of whiskey and like that kind of thing, and just kind of restart that cycle every day, and that wasn't really healthy or productive whatsoever. And now it's like I look at what my personal time is, and it's like, in bed by like 10, we'll have done some sort of exercise or connecting with my fiance over dinner, and just kind of having that much more peaceful and calm manner now,
Yeah.
um, which is great because I mean I would say the last 8 years, the 7 years when I was solo wasn't I didn't have really a healthy time to like decompress and do that. I didn't do that at all for seven
Yeah.
years.
What was it? I mean, what was it that kind of made you like, I got to change? Like, was it just the fact that you felt like you were burning the candle at both ends and in the middle sometimes, or?
I think it was a mix of that and also realizing that okay, sometimes when you make this big decision business by hiring someone, when you're hiring someone, it's going to be a lot of money, it's going to be a risk that I need to try this now, otherwise I never will do it. And
Right.
I
Yep.
also I can't continue on this path that I was doing before. And I'm sure if I continue on that path, I could probably do more business and the business will grow, but at the expense of just everything else. And I was like,
Right.
looking back, I'm like, I don't want that. I really just don't want that at all. So I was like, okay, it was a mix of being like, take the leap of faith, go through the hiring process. And my manager at Compass Gen was also like, you have to do this. Like you have
Yeah.
to do this. So that external pressure was really helpful to have to be like
Yeah.
time to,
It's good to be accountable
yeah,
to somebody,
definitely.
Yeah. Now, hopefully, you're still enjoying those whiskeys, but just a little more slowly, right?
Yeah, Steph. I would say still enjoy the whiskey is much more seldom. I was like, yeah, so it's more of a treat now.
There you go. Now, you obviously, we've all seen some changes in the past couple of years, but over the past 8 years that you've been doing this since you started, what are some of the real big changes that you've personally seen in your market that are kind of normal now?
I'd say some of the biggest changes I've seen is like in terms of the practice or in terms of the marketplace.
I mean, either really, because it can affect both sides, right? So, there's a lot of electronic changes out there. There's a lot of social media. There's a push for people to be healthier, right? In what you're doing. So, but what are the biggest ones that you think personally have affected, you in your place in that?
So yeah, I would say in terms of marketplace in the last 8 years, the biggest change I've seen is just how limited inventory is in the markets I work in year over year. It's just becoming
Hmm.
less and less and less. And for select inventory that check these certain boxes, those options are becoming so infrequent year over year that
Yep.
it makes it really kind of hard to find to find places for clients in a more in a quicker cycle. And that's one thing
Yep.
that's been very challenging in terms of the way doing business and what I'm seeing changes in the agency side. I would say I'm seeing a lot more of the same agents on other sides where it's like I'm not really interacting with a random broker I haven't seen before, and I've seen a lot less people like doing it at a certain level. So I feel like competition is definitely getting much stronger, and
Hmm.
buyers are really wanting to take the time to interview and hire the right agent that's going to be good for them. I mean, the metrics are pretty crazy with how like the 2 or 3% of agents in the state are doing 97% of the business. So
Oh, wow.
before, when
Yeah.
you started in kind of it was like the go times, people would just go and hire their referral or cousin or someone and not really think of it, but they're like, wait, this is arguably could be one of the most stressful and biggest financial situations and decisions of my life.
Hmm.
Maybe take the time to really interview different people who's going to be the best fit for me. So I'm seeing more on the buy sell side, people take that time to do that.
And I think that's, it's a good thing. We talk a lot on the podcast about how it is a relationship. It's a two-way relationship. It has to work for both, people who are involved. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I wanted to finish talking a little bit more about, kind of the trends in the market. And is there a place where you kind of see anything shifting, right now in the market?
I feel like it is still strongly a seller's market right now.
Hmm.
I don't see a shift to buyers having a lot of leverage. I think it's obviously property specific, but the overall, it is still very strongly a seller's market right now. I think this another shift I'm seeing is that you're seeing a lot of people who are thinking about upsizing,
Hmm.
making that transition because they're sitting on these low rates on their first condo purchase. They are holding on to them instead of selling them.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that way more frequently. And what that does is also constrict the inventory coming up.
Yep.
So that has kind of put us in a really difficult situation because we're seeing like 30% reduction on inventory in like, Back Bay, South End, Beacon Hill, these kind of really core markets because people are who would usually sell that condo if they move to the suburbs to, buy a single family, raise kids are holding on to them.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was the thing that you were talking about, where the sales are kind of a little depleted right now. That it makes sense, that people are holding on to things. I mean, if you got into a house at the time that I did, where the rates were really, really low, it's kind of attractive. Now, I made a long term plan to to be here for quite a lot, a number of years, but a lot of people, yeah, it was that temporary, first time home buyer kind of, and then those just kind of often tend to shuffle again and again, but yeah, if people are holding on, that shuffle isn't happening right now. Where do you think new agents can kind of discover this information? Where should they go to pay attention to those shifts and those trends?
You can really find out for yourself using MLS and public records. Like you
Hmm.
can see, okay, if you just go on MLS and say, okay, let's take a look at. You can go pretty specific. Like condos, 2 bedroom, that have sold 02116 in 2023, and then go back to like let's say 2018 or 2019, and then you can compare right from there on like a 7 year comparison, and then you can go on public records and filter the dates. And then I know it's a little bit of work, but now with chat you can cross reference so that there's no duplicates to see, all right, how many off market transactions are there?
Right.
And then you're realizing, okay, wow, like 30% of all the transactions sold in that specific, you know, type of property are going off market. Now, okay, where are these off market options coming from? Are they coming from places like Compass coming soon, or different agent networks? Are they coming from private sales within a building, where it's like you can digging deep into that information is, you don't have to go crazy, but it's just helpful to have that, because
Yeah.
if you are someone who can be resourceful and find those off market opportunities, that is, I would say, one of the most valuable things you can do right now for a consumer in a market where there isn't a lot of options.
Right. And if you've been in it for, several years like you have, you probably have some of those relationships that you've built with those people. And they're probably contacting you and reaching out and being like, hey, what are my options? What should I be thinking of? Or you're saying, hey, you've been there for so long. And, have you thought about your next options yet? And is that kind of, how that relationship goes for you with a lot of these folks?
Yeah, I'm starting to kind of just see that turnaround with 8 years,
Hmm.
where I still feel like I'm like so early on in my career, because it's like I'm starting to see that, of selling the place now and finding a new, and going to a new place, or that's why I'm seeing firsthand where they're like, our rates are so good, we're just going to keep this and either rent it out, or it's financially sound enough for us to just keep it, hold it for a little bit longer until it's a better time to sell, or when we're ready to take our time to. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing that transition now. But yeah, I would say that getting access to those off markets for consumers is definitely a big push that I've been trying to go for, especially this year. And
Yeah.
into that effect, like
Hmm.
that's why these buyer agency relationships are so important. Like before the NAR settlement, I really would never have a buyer agency sign, and I would kind of to I'd go to equal lengths for, not equal, but I would go to extreme lengths for people that and maybe get burned down the line. And that
Right.
happened a few times, but now it's like, okay, if I'm meeting with someone on new, and I, present a buyer agency agreement and tell them, okay, this is what I'm going to do for you, explain it to them and whatnot. And they're like, no, I want you to send me off market listings, but I'm not going to sign anything. It's like, okay, perfect. Now I know ahead of time not to give any effort and energy for them, because that needs to be reserved for people that I have that relationship with, that deserve that effort and that
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, and it seems like definitely some things have shifted in that way for sure in the market. With that recent decision. What are some other things? I mean, or one thing that when you were starting out that you wished you had known, like that you wished you hadn't been pushing and going for and trying to get, that would have really reshaped, I guess, your real estate career.
It would probably be that. Don't go to bat go to war for people like that are don't have any loyalty to you whatsoever, because that
Yeah,
would save me so much emotional, mental energy depletion. And that would say that I would definitely give myself that advice beforehand. But when you're new, it's hard, because you really just want to prove your value so quickly for people, and you don't have the years of experience in sales to back it up. So it's one of those things where it's like, for me, I was like, okay, I can lick my wounds, because I don't have, a huge sphere at this point. I don't have a lot of experience to stand on, so I kind of have to go the extra mile just to get the opportunity to work with someone. Uh,
yeah,
but I would say definitely be a little bit more mindful, and treat it too like a two-way relationship. Even if you're a new agent, like, I would say work with everyone in the beginning, though, because you need to get that experience. But at a
right.
certain point, when you know you're good at what you do, like, it is a two-way interview. Like, do you want to work with this person? Do you align with this person? And if you feel like the answer is no in a lot of ways, then it's okay to part ways, because you need to protect your inner energy too and what you're going to give out.
Can't agree with you more. Yeah, you got to protect that. And I think, it allows you to deliver better for those clients who are working with you. Now, you talked a little bit about going in and checking out, the details and going into, looking at the data of what's going on. And is that one of the things that's really been a good resource for you, being able to learn how to look at that data and kind of where the market is shifting and where, things are moving or not moving?
Definitely. I'm very big on that, like, especially because it's not like a now, if you look at different markets in different property types, there's a plethora of data, but I like to dig deep in that, because
Hmm.
also, as an investor myself, like, I really want to know what I'm buying and looking at, and what the projections are. I utilize that for myself, and I share that information with clients as well.
Yeah. Do you think that learning and, that ability to manage that data and look at that in different ways has helped you kind of to scale properly, or noticing and understanding that it was there?
I don't know if I could correlate it to like a percentage of scaling, but I could definitely say confidence when I'm speaking with a buyer and we're looking at a property, and I could say, this is something. If you buy this now and you maybe do X, Y, Z, or nothing, in 2 years, 3 years, you're looking at I'll say like at around X amount like return, like without a doubt. Or even like in two
Yeah.
years you'll see what is gonna sell, and you're gonna be mind blown at what you got it for. And I can say that
Nice.
with extreme confidence. If and I don't say that all the time, but if I have the numbers to back it up and data and I know it, I'm very fine with saying that.
And again, having that data, having that good, understanding of your client, helping you go to bat for people. I think those are all have got to be a lot of kind of building that strong relationship and maintaining. What are some other, ways that you kind of build or maintain those relationships with clients, that you show them that you confidently know your info?
When I'm working with someone who I really genuinely like and care about, it's kind of like it kind of goes almost sometimes beyond the classic real estate cycle, where I want to understand the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
What is the real motivation behind this purchase? What is going on in your life? Like there's so many different aspects of it. And I'm like, okay, how can I do my best to, within my control, to alleviate some of that stress and have that foundation where you can come to me for almost anything. And
Hmm.
that's why, and sometimes like, by doing that, you kind of transcend like an agency relationship. Like, I'm hearing about things in their life that no one in their family has known about, and it's a very trusted relationship where they don't even have to question. They like, if they look at a place, they're like, we need to have Hans come in here to see it first with us, and we have, just building that really strong foundation of trust is very important to me, and that's why it goes back with like when I do give that amount of energy, like it means so much more when it's reserved for people that mutual respect and care is there. When that's one sided, it can be a very
Yeah.
gutting feeling, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes I have to learn, and that's okay. Not every client's going to be like that. Some people do want a more transactional relationship, and that's fine. And just getting okay with separating, what is going to be a good fit for one person to another. And then in terms of maintaining relationships, I like to check in, with my past clients and just see. A lot of them become friends, and it's like it's not like it's even a thought. It's like I just call them to hang out with them and see what's going on in their lives. Or if it's someone I know was planning to do something, check in and say how this project was going and whatnot.
Well, I like that you kind of referred to yourself in the third party, like we got to call Hans, like, that's got to be, this kind of nice brand that you've built of with yourself, with those clients, with those resources that you've provided, again, saying that you're kind of like that one-stop shop for some people out there. Would you say that that's kind of like the brand that you've developed for yourself in your area?
Definitely, I would say that's something that I would say very. That's probably my brand right now. Yeah, if just like one stop shop. I've kind of had that for probably 5 years now. And sometimes I will say that is to a detriment because it really is. Like there are a few times where it's like I'll come in and be like, okay, because I know I can be like, all right, X amount of investment will get us X amount back on the resale.
Right.
But you have to be very careful, and I realize I need to be really careful because sometimes, these are people's homes, and it's a lot of love and care and character into it. So by me saying, hey, I think we should do these suggestions, it also can come off as offensive, like you don't like the way we have our place laid out. And I need to be really mindful of that because it's like sometimes I'm thinking about like I just want to get you the most money as possible and the least stress and like
Yeah.
possible, but sometimes just be very careful with how I bring that up because it can come off as, or it can be taken as offensive when it really is only coming from a place of best interest.
Right, right. Yeah, you're kind of looking at it, to a potential future buyer investor kind of thing, and they're like, "Ugh, you don't like my taste in, countertops or whatever," and yeah, yeah. A lot of people can. I can imagine that it can go wrong, and when it goes wrong, it can really go wrong. Do you kind of remember any? Is there a particular story that kind of that makes you think of when you think of kind of like some recommendations that you made that didn't go right or that they weren't taken well?
Yeah, but it's almost too recent where I don't know if this is gonna come back. I just like, long story short of
Uh,
it, I like it was so it almost costed me the listing actually, and it was coming from a I was coming from a place of pure like I want to break a record for you, and I really
right.
want to like just do like I want to do so much for you, and it was taken as I was like it was taken like it was hostile, and I had to really retract a lot
Yeah.
to make good on that. So that was a good experience because it was a good reminder to me, be like, okay, I really, every situation needs to be approached a little differently, and you don't really know until you're actually there. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to take it a little slow.
Yeah. Good reminder that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, very,
um,
very, 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 very recent. So yeah, that was a good,
Yeah. Well, we'll just scratch that surface and we won't
perfect.
dive in too deep for
Yeah,
that one. Now, I mean, there's the place that you're in now. There's the other property that you're talking about that you kind of really took a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy in. Is either of those your kind of like the most proudest thing that you've worked on, or is there something else that you're just kind of like, wow, it just really worked well, or it really was beneficial to that community, or somebody that you really cared about?
yeah, there's a couple. I mean, in terms of like experience as an agent and as a newer agent, that made me that this is like one of the best I would say stories I've ever had. Was one of my first listings. It was a really like now they're actually like almost family to me. It was
Hmm.
a older couple who had a condo to sell. They wanted to buy a single family in this neighborhood. They weren't really working, so there wasn't a lot of income to work with. So most of the proceeds were going to come from the sale.
Right.
And this was one of my first listings, and they actually had a family member who was an agent as well, but they really, they trusted me to do it. And when they found the place to buy, we had the home sale contingency. We hadn't listed the place yet, and you know, the sellers wouldn't accept the home sale contingency, and that 50K deposit was pretty much everything that was there. And
Right.
if we they wouldn't even extend the dates because it was a trustee court situation, so it was a very scary situation for me to be in because I care a lot about these people. This is all the money that they have, and it's on me to do this. So it was we went through it, and I explained the
Mm.
risks, and they're like, we trust you, like we trust you, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
We closed on we broke a record on the sale of their condo, and then closed on their single family later that day. And the wife was crying at the closing and gave me the biggest hug and like did a prayer for me, and that was like truly one of them. That was the best. There's no closing that will ever even come close to that ever. There's no amount of money I can make on a deal that would even feel even remotely as good
Right.
as that feeling. And now like they're one of the
That's
closest
awesome.
people in my life, and it's just that experience was like, okay, wow, like like people, there's a lot of negative media things and connotations with realtors and real estate people, but it's like when you see that and other things that you can do, it's like you realize you actually have the power to command a pretty uh, meaningful event in someone's life, and in a way that not a lot of other professions can like do. And
Yeah.
it really is a big deal. Like it's a huge deal. Like I'll never forget that.
Yeah. From
So
my
yeah.
own personal experience. Yeah. I mean, I had a life-changing moment that was, thanks to a good realtor and lawyer working together with me. And I remember saying to them, like, I don't know why you're working so hard on this. I don't want to work so hard on this. And it's my house.
That's
Like,
awesome. That's awesome.
but yeah, we changed some things for the better with that. And as a person who was in the middle of that and had no idea about any real estate dealings at the time, it was definitely changed my view on the whole process, right? And what people in your shoes can do for people who are in shoes like I was in at the time. So from folks like me, thank you.
well, thank you for trusting them. So, that's and then
Yeah.
of course, if someone has a bad experience, it's like anything else, right? Like it's like a relationship. Say, oh, I've had a horrible boyfriend, I'm never gonna date again or something like that. And but I feel like
Right.
that's why you got to. That's every more the reason why you want to wait till you have a good one. So, no, but
Yeah.
I definitely I get there can be a lot of fulfillment in it, and something like that's not going to happen every day. So you have a lot of these other things you have to deal with. But when those come, it's, definitely savor them and don't take them for granted, because it can give you the fuel to keep going on those harder days.
Nice. Well, looking forward, in the next couple of years, I mean, now you've got a person who's on your team. You're looking at your things, differently. You're making time for yourself, and getting that exercise, eating right, etc. What's kind of like that next step? What's the next couple of years going to look like? Do you have any plans for that yet, or?
Become a ultra marathon runner. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely not. I don't have the people. No, I'm just kidding. It's I would say, just continuing to do what I'm doing. Almost, I feel like if I continue that, that's great. And I would love to. Like, my dream is to, be a part of like custom, really cool projects.
Hmm.
Whether it's in the city or the area where I'm, designing and help develop and sell them out. I would love to kind of make that a big part of my overall business, as well as just kind of like, you know, like continue to be involved in the community. Like I've been at Big for a year, but I also would love to like find a way to like marry like the real estate and construction side of things to the community, whether it's like sponsoring a new roof for someone who needs it, or kind of like I would love to do that kind of thing, and grow both the real estate brokerage side and construction side together to a level
Nice.
where they're much bigger. But I might need to hire more help for that. But
Yeah, yeah, I have a feeling that's a little bit bigger team. So, well, very cool. As you head toward that legacy, we'll all be rooting for you on that. Now, Boston's an interesting place, and as you mentioned before, like you've got your neighborhoods that are all very different and very unique. And I've got to say, Boston is one of these places where you're just going to meet a cast of characters, even if you're just in town visiting for a couple of days. But you must have seen some pretty interesting, pretty unusual places, throughout those 8 years you've been doing this. Are there any that are just kind of like, wow, I gotta tell you about this place I saw?
I mean, I have like there's one that's like crazy. Like I've one on both spectrums. Which one
Hmm.
do you want?
Hey, let's hear them both. I mean,
All right, on the high side, I mean, there was this one like $20 million single family in Beacon Hill that was just insane. I mean, it
yeah.
had like an indoor pool, you name it, elevator, crazy roof deck, golf simulator. Just the like the molding was like 3 feet of crown molding, all
Oh,
meticulously
wow.
etched. Like it was one of the most incredible places I'd ever seen, and the detail was just second to none. And then on the other side, there was a multifamily I saw one time in Lynn years ago, which was the ceiling had come down in the middle of it.
Oh
You
boy.
had like asbestos, like not like loose insulation everywhere,
Yep.
water. There was someone like there was a squatter living there. The smell of smoke. It was so disgusting. Like I think I showered like 3 times after. It was one of the
Right.
most horrific things I've seen. But like yeah, that was in terms of property. So that was crazy, crazy spectrum there.
Yeah, there always seems to be a squatter in a lot of those unusual and interesting stories.
Yes,
you
always
know,
a squatter.
and sometimes one that nobody even knew about.
Definitely. You see a lot
um,
of crazy things. One time, my inspector was at a home inspection and was like looking above a like a trap closet door or whatever, and like
mhm.
pulled out like a revolver. And I was like, oh,
Oh
well,
wow.
that's definitely not going to be included in the sale, so we'll take
Yeah.
that out. Yeah.
Let's just not put that back. Yeah, don't need to be associated with that one. Now here's kind of a fun question to think about. Um, if you weren't doing real estate, what do you think you'd be doing? Do you think you'd still be kind of in that political sphere, or doing something else?
I love what I'm doing right now. Honestly, I don't think I'd want to do anything different.
That's a great answer. No, I mean, you know, I think to love what you're doing and where you are is a thing a lot of people aren't at that point. So it's good that you are.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
might, I might, I mean, for dream, I might get. I would love to have something in Vermont with a bunch of acres and a big farm and a bunch of animals, and that'd be pretty awesome. I
Well,
wouldn't
we can
mind
make it
that.
happen.
I
I know
wouldn't
some
mind
people,
that.
but yeah, if you ever get out of the out of the game, just give me a call. What's a fun fact about you that a lot of people don't know that maybe they should?
I'm a pretty good freestyle rapper.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
I can freestyle. I can freestyle.
I'm not going to put you on the spot right now.
No,
We're
no,
going to
no.
trust you. But
Yeah,
yeah, if there's ever a freestyle battle and I'm in Boston, I'm going to be like, "Where's Hans?" All right,
definitely. Yeah,
because you never know. That
you
could
never
happen.
know.
That could totally at any time you could be in a freestyle battle. So
Anytime.
um, another kind of fun question. Money's no object, and we don't have
Mm.
to stay grounded in reality. And I love to just kind of ask these questions just so people kind of get to know a little bit more, about the non-professional side of folks like Hans. If you could buy or you could get a property, and maybe that that one in Vermont that you're talking about is it. Money's no object. You could make this either happen or it's a place that exists in reality, top of a mountain, side of the sea. Where would you want to be? Where is it that your dream spot is?
So I have an answer to that, but it's like if I have money's not an object, and I could like because I have like two answers. One is like where I'd live and where I would put like where I would put my money and like try to do. So where I would
Yep.
live, I would say honestly, I'm a Northeast guy. Just give me the Northeast. Maybe something that's like an hour to Boston, maybe parts of Maine or New Hampshire, even Vermont.
Hmm.
Big, a lot of land near mountains and hiking, and just a very peaceful place.
Yeah.
But on the second side, what I would this is going back to like my fourth grade dream, buying a massive reservation in East Africa, Namibia, somewhere like that, to protect endangered, especially rhinos, and
Yep.
have a whole like anti-poaching army to defend it. That was like my goal
Nice.
since I was a kid, to protect. Like I would one day I was like, I want to find a way to protect the rhinos. Only thing I've done now is just donate to the World Wildlife Federation. But that if
Yeah.
I had unlimited money, I would go back to that childhood dream to protect the
Nice.
rhinos.
Hey, that's a good dream. I mean, stopping poachers is I don't think ever a bad
Yeah, but
a bad
and then
thing.
I got older. And I was like, well, stopping poachers is one thing where it's like, well, you got to stop where the source is, right? Because like China and other areas, they're the ones that are the biggest importers of the ivory, and then you have other areas too. So it's like, how deep do we have to go here to stop
Right,
this?
right.
So
How
it's
far?
like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that's
Now, you just told us something that was kind of a little bit crazy, right? With going in and finding this revolver in a place. Is there ever any other place that you found, that was kind of like really crazy or funny, especially when you're showing a property, like you're going
yes,
through? Yeah,
definitely. Oh yeah,
let's
definitely,
let's
definitely.
hear it.
I was showing a place like right down the street from me, and it was like the photos online were great, and I was like, parents like, why has this been on the market for so long? And I'm like, I honestly don't know because the price didn't seem crazy. You go in there, and it was like professors that were living there, and you went in
Hmm.
there, every window was shut, stuff everywhere, like sex toys everywhere. Like
Oh,
sex toys
wow.
everywhere, and I was just like, and it was just like you couldn't even walk. It was closed and sex toys, and these are like I think it was like older people that were living. I was like, we walked in, walked out, and I was like, that is not what I expected. So yeah, that deal, yeah, that was odd. I was like that was very odd.
Yeah, yeah. Sex object hoarder is not what I expected
No,
the answer to
no.
that to be. But yeah, how do you expect that when you walk into a
I
place,
think
right?
I think because I think it was tenants. I think it was tenants that were living there. I think one of them was like affiliated with Harvard or something like that. But I was like, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah, that was not on my 2025 bingo card, that's for sure. All right. Well, Hans, thank you so much for joining us. This has definitely been great getting to know you. One of the things that we like to do, of course, is when we send this out, tag you and share some of the other places that people can find you. But maybe there's a place that you like better than others where people should go if they want to learn more about you. They want to get in touch with you. They're maybe looking to buy property. Where should they go?
At Hans dash Nagrath on Instagram or hansnagrath.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we will definitely make sure to share those when this episode comes out. Um, but that's basically it. I've run out of questions, and I know I've taken up a lot of your time. So I'm going to wrap this up and conclude this episode of the Inner Circle podcast. I hope everybody who's listening, Hans, really found some enlightening stuff, have some great takeaways on how to take their real estate careers to the next level, just like you did with yours. So thanks everybody again for tuning in. Find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Instagram at America's Inner Circle. Thanks again to our guest, Hans Nagrath, and we'll see everybody again next time.
Thank you so much, Mel. Appreciate it.